All right, let's quickly go over a simple mix of a standard 10 IU GH vial. Here's mine. If you have super eyes, you can see what brand, but it's one of my favorite generics. I know everybody says not to use generics, but hey, some of them are good. All right, so here's my generic GH vial. I just popped that little top off. That comes on every little standardized capped vial or cramped vial. Popped it right off. And here's my fresh bacteriostatic water, brand new. There's a cap on that one as well. So I am going to pop this one off. Bink. Just like that. Discard it. So now I have my two vials. I have my bacteriostatic water vial, which this particular one is the one I always get ever since I've ever gotten them. It is 30 milliliters, it's a standard brand, but sometimes it's hard to get online. And my GH vial that I've showed you a couple times. This is a standard vial as well. Almost all peptides, unless they're super large, or I don't think they're any smaller, they're usually 2 or 5 milligrams, which is 2,000 to 5,000 micrograms if it's a peptide for the typical conversions in one of these standard size vials. Growth hormone is also the same, and it comes in a little kit. Bonk. It's called a kit when it's a GH product. It's always been called that ever since the old meathead days of my old school days. So GH vial, bacteriostatic vial, and I got my ghetto taped up, 88% roughly. 88%, they don't make 88%. 88% alcohol. So it's like 90% plus medical grade alcohol that I order from a certain website. Can't remember offhand, but you don't need 90%, 70% and above kills pretty much anything you want to kill. So I'm going to take this, take my cotton ball, spray it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 3 to 5 times. Tap and wipe, tap and twist, tap and twist. Notice I did it twice on each one just to make sure that there was no cotton fibers like that kind of at the top of the vial. The reason I like to use a little bit of stronger alcohol is not so much to kill things that are unkillable, if you will, because 70% and above, like I said, will kill it. But it's because once you tap the vial, and you can probably see that even in this lighting, that this sucker is already dry. So the higher percent alcohol just dries real quick. If you use 70%, if you swipe it, sometimes it's like sweat on a Florida day where your perspiration just doesn't dry off. It doesn't evaporate. So you're sitting there for a while. But either way, once it's dry, you're good to go. I'm going to take my 25 gauge, inch long, standard, I think it's Lure Lock or BD Lure Lock, same thing. They have the twistable tops. 25 gauge, 1 inch in needle. That's typically too thin to draw oils with, but in this case we're just drawing water. Think. I'm going to draw 1 ml of water, bacteriostatic water. I'm going to draw 1 ml. 1 ml of the water right past that little bubble inside the barrel. This is the barrel. That's the transfer case, that little blue part. I'm just flicking the bubbles out of the transfer case. I am not worried about the bubbles. That's just not even a thing, so we'll come back to that later. But there you go. So a little bit of an overdraw, like a 1.1 or so volume draw of bacteriostatic water. Hold it in place, the plunger, pull out. Then I'm going to take the vial of growth hormone and I'm going to put it in the center, and this one is vacuum sealed, even though it's generic. A lot of generics are not. That's how you can tell, but watch. I got to stop this sucker from going in if I let it go. See that? How quick it's going? Whoa, I don't want it to go that fast because now my growth hormone is a little bit bubbly inside. You shouldn't do that, actually. You shouldn't do that, what I just did, because you could see a little bit of bubbles at the bottom. That's not because it's a crappy product. That's simply because I let it go too fast. So I'm going to hold the syringe and let it just kind of trickle down the side a little bit as I roll the GH. Now you can see the brand, but whatever. Wow, there's a lot of suction in this sucker. It's the only generics I've ever used that have a lot of vacuum in it, man. So once it's all the way in, make sure that there's no fluid left in the syringe, and you're going to hold the vial. Make sure that your pin, if you look through the side where wherever the label, if there's a gap in the label, you can see where the pin is. Make sure the pin is not in the fluid and pull out. That way you don't get any kind of reverse vacuum outwards where you lose a bunch of volume. And when you're putting only 1 ml in there, or 1 cc, they're interchangeable, 1 ml, 1 cc. If you lose a quarter of a cc, that's pretty much a quarter of your vial, which is like 2.5 IUs of your 10 IUs in your vial, which sucks. So you don't want to lose that. I'm going to put the cap back on this. So now I got my growth hormone. So one thing I like to do in order to mix it is, it's true, it's a meathead thing that you say at old school, you never shake, you swirl, but swirling takes forever. So I like to put it in between my hands like this while I don't touch the top, so I don't contaminate the cork that I alcohol swabbed. Just gently, not too fast, because you don't want too much what you call perturbation of the molecules inside. Growth hormone has these fancy things in the structure called disulfide bridges, and they're really, really fractionable, fragile little bonds that if you just shake the vial like that much, you can start to disrupt it. So it's not usually exaggerated either about how fragile growth hormone is once it's mixed. So once this sucker's mixed, like even showing you like this and moving it around, I'm being careful not to shake it too much. So it's pretty much all dissolved. You can see that cloudiness from before is now gone. I don't know if you can see it, that it's gone. See, it's perfectly clear. It's clearer on, see, it's transparent. It's perfectly clear in real life, real time, but I know it's not as clear in your video as you're watching that. But that's my GH. So now I have 10 IUs dispersed amongst 1 ml of an intramuscular syringe. 1 ml of an intramuscular syringe is 100 units on a standard insulin syringe. All orange caps are insulin. It's not so true for standard colors of other brands of intramuscular syringes like the Lurilac or the BD brand. Blue doesn't necessarily mean it's a certain gauge or whatever else. You still have to look at the gauge of insulin syringes, but the insulin syringes are all together. So there's only a few medical grade ones that you don't ever need to use, and no one ever buys them. No one ever really even sells them. But that have a screw top. You don't want a screw top for your insulin pen. It's a pain in the butt. So you just want the standard one. These are cheap. They come get like 100 of them for like 35 bucks. 100 of them for like 15, 20 bucks if you know where to look enough, or if you have some rapport with any online vendors. But so that is 100 IUs. You can see the 100. So when someone says GH, they take GH and they take a CC, MML. It's so easy to not confuse it. And I don't know why some of the smartest people I've ever met still confuse it. Guys, ML and CC, milliliter, cubic centimeter. Cubic centimeter is cubed, it's just volume. That's why it's cubed. ML is a milliliter, you know, like milliliters are marked on everything that we drink and use all the time. So an ML is a CC. That's all you ever have to remember. And they're not used to measure GH, except for when I say I'm going to put an ml of bacteriostatic water into a vial of GH. Then I have 1 full milliliter or 1 full cc, because ml and cc are interchangeable, inside my 10 IU vial of GH. So what is 1/10 of 10? Ooh, that's hard math, right? 1, right? So now, if I wanted to take 1 IU of GH, remember I said 100 on the insulin pin? 100 here, 100 here is just 1 here. 1 ml or cc interchangeable, 100 units. So every tiny tick mark is 1. Really smart people are like, oh, I take 1, Renee. I take 2. I take 3. That's 10, 20, 30. Right here, this little mark, that's 10 IUs of insulin if you were to take it. IUs, guys, which means it's not different if you take growth hormone as far as whatever the measurement is on the pin. on the barrel of the syringe, of the insulin syringe. So 1/10 of a cc, if you take 10 units, is only the first little tiny tick mark, 1/10 of an ml or cc. 1/10 of this guy, or 10 units, is only that. You can barely see it. That. Right? So, you want to take your shot of GH. You're going to put your pin in your GH. And if you want, take ten units. I'm going to draw slowly as it drips in to the 10 mark. 10 on here. Remember, 10 on here, 1/10. 100, 1 ml. 1/10, 1/10 of a cc, or 1/10 of an ml. That's only 1 unit of GH, because remember, I put a full 1 ml or 1 cc of bacteriostatic water in the growth hormone. So if I want 2 units, I have to pull this. Am I nice and cross-eyed for you guys? I have to pull this to 20. That is 2 units of GH, 2 IUs, or 2/10 or 1/5 of what's in this vial. Keep talking about the same numbers. It's so simple, and yet it starts to sound difficult. So again, what if I wanted to take 1 IU only, which wouldn't be a meathead dose? That's not even a replacement dose. How much? That's right, 10. 10, 10, right to the 10 would be 1 IU of GH, because this is the 10 IU vial, and we put 1 milliliter of fluid into it. 1/10 of 1 milliliter is 10 100ths on the insulin syringe. How much if I wanted 2 units? 20. What if I wanted 3 units? 30. What if I wanted 4 units? This is getting tough, right? 40. Boom, 40. If I took that much, which is almost half, or let's just make it half. If I took 50 units, 50 of this 100 unit volume holding barrel on this insulin syringe, that would be 5 IUs of GH, because it's half of this vial based on what I put in it, which is 1.0 volume fluid bacteriostatic water into the vial to dilute it. You'll use 1.0 mLs or cc's of bacteriostatic water for your 10 IU vials, and you'll have easy math. Then you just multiply by 10. So if you always use 1 full ml from that intramuscular syringe, if you always use 1 of bacteriostatic water right there, 1, can you see it? That's that 1. In here, that means you will have 10 1 IU doses, each IU dose being 10 units on the insulin pin. So I'm going to put this back to 2 because I want to take 2 units right now. And I'm going to turn it right side up, take it out. And the last thing I'm going to do before I let you guys go is I am going to spray myself here with some alcohol with another fresh cotton ball. Let it dry. Bing. Push. 2 units. Boom! Done. That simple. Hope that helps.